Now the seat tracks and the seat bottom, I don't really do a whole lot with. They don't seem to need it. There's a decent amount of movement in these, but they're still pretty clean and they seem to work pretty well, and you really don't have to adjust these all that much. What I do on these guys, because of the fact that you can see this part of the hinge, is I take a little bit of Scotch-Brite and I basically clean this area up and use a piece of cardboard and just kind of hold it there, and then I hit just this part with flat black paint, either flat black or semi-gloss or whatever you want to use. And then I also painted the front 4 bolts also flat black, so you can see those when they're installed. And the seat's all the way back. I'm 6'4", so the seats are always all the way back. You can see those, so that cleans it up. The back ones aren't that big of a deal because they have the plastic caps. So same deal with this. If this is grungier, I'll use a little bit of Windex or something, or even water and soap and water to clean up the really filthy spot. Use the power, vacuum, use the power out, and then leather treat the front and sides and put the seat back together. So you do that and your seat's gonna be about as good as you can make it without pulling the cover and cleaning the foam. You're never gonna get it to the point where you smack your hand and dust comes out. You could clean it a whole bunch and you might make it better, but unless you take the seat cover off and actually clean the foam really well and clean this thing out, there's just so much stuff that filters down in there and gets stuck. It's really hard to do. So if you're going to replace the cover, you can take care of that then. So but that's it for kind of the quick refurb. Now we're going to talk about those armrests. Okay, here's how I deal with the armrests on these guys. And part of the reason I'm doing this is not part of the reason, the only reason. First of all, you can see how sad they look. I mean, they're just very saggy, and there's lots of wrinkles in them, and that's because the foam inside is deteriorated, and what was this thick is now that thick, and you're out of room. Along with that goes the lack of support. So you've already got the material pulled back a little bit from removing the armrest. So kind of the first thing you want to try to do is just grab it down here, just pinch it and just pull. Sometimes it won't come out all the way. You get hung up right here. So you can just kind of get it over that little, this is the recess for that screw. If you get it over that, it'll pull right off. So if you just grab it, give it a little pull and work with it. Don't just yank it, because if you rip this, you're gonna have to get a new cover or fix it yourself. And pretty much as soon as you get the cover off, you're gonna see the problem. It's pretty gross. I mean, that thing's just full of dead foam. Get that out of there as best you can. And then this is what you're left with. This is why your arm hits it and it's not comfortable, and why we have to fix it. So they have this little reinforced patch here. I'm not really sure what the heck that's doing, so I ripped that off. And then the rest of this foam, just go ahead and pull it off. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. When I first recovered the very first one of these, I didn't take this off. Just because it was still in decent shape, because nothing really leans against it, but it also covered the bolt hole, so I just kind of left it alone. The last couple times I did it, I took everything off and it worked out just fine, and I'll show you how I did it. So you want to get this old foam off, and you'll see they used copious amounts of glue when they put this together, so they never intended for this to look like this someday, but maybe they did. I don't know. So the easiest way to get rid of all this other crap is just get yourself a wire brush and just go ahead and brush it off. It's going to make a mess. Just get it the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like when you're recovering a headliner or something, you want pretty much everything off. But because this is not, it's going to have the cover kind of holding it on. You can just do the best you can. Anything that's not coming off with this isn't going to come off anytime soon. So just get it mostly cleaned up so you can see what you're working with, and so you have a reasonable surface for the glue to adhere to. I like to try to get as much of the old foam out. You can blow air into it, and you can use a vacuum, but if you just shake it, you'll get most of it out. There's chunks in there. And if you don't get it all out, it's not the end of the world. So once you get that, go ahead and clean up your workspace because you're gonna have quite a mess. Okay, so now you're left with this plastic thing. So if you ever get confused, the notch goes at the top, so that's how you know it's the left-hand armrest. That's for your adjustment screw. Now there's a couple, well there's not even a couple, there's a bunch of things you could cover this with. You could use memory foam, you could use soft foam, you could use, I don't know, whatever foam. You go to Joann Fabrics, pick out whatever foam you want. Since it's not advisable to go anywhere right now, I decided to use what I had laying around, and I just happen to have a whole bunch of jute padding from doing the interior. If you don't know what jute padding is, this is what it is. It's like a felt, it's like a recycled felt, and it's got a kind of a rough side and then a soft side. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick, and I'm gonna layer it on here. The reason I picked this is, number one, foam is a funny thing. So foam, you basically are gonna make it, you're gonna put way more foam in there than you think you need, and you're gonna jam it in there, and it's gonna make this. You got to be careful how you layer it because it's going to shape this, and it compresses. And if you use memory foam, that eventually kind of gets divots in it, and it's going to wear out. Again, this stuff will not wear out. Also, foam is really soft. I don't need the armrest to be like a bed pillow. What I need it to do is support my elbow, be soft enough to where it's comfortable, but be supportive so that it feels like I'm actually leaning on something. So this stuff is very soft, not that you're going to touch it, but it does have some cushion to it, and by the time you put a couple layers on there, it's going to feel nice. The support's going to be there. So the first thing you're going to do is what I did was I cut some 2-inch strips. This is less than 2 inches, but what I've found the best recipe is to wrap a piece completely around, then put a support piece right here, and then go one more layer all the way to here. Now I've been stopping here, but I think on this one I'm going to try to go all the way around just to get rid of some more of the sag, but you could just do one layer. When you put the last layer on, because you took off the sides, we're going to use a wide piece, and I'll show you. You're going to use a wide piece, and you're not going to make any fancy patterns. You don't have to anyway. You're just going to kind of start to glue it and then start trimming it till it fits. And then what you're going to wind up with is a nice thick rounded topped armrest, and it's going to work well. So in order to get started, starting to run out of spray there. I'm going to use a different can. This is the stuff I'm using, Permatex heavy duty. It's the 27828 stuff. I use this for headliners. Matter of fact, it says right on there, automotive headliners. Really good spray glue. If you don't know how to use spray glue, you spray some on that side, you spray some on this side, you let it sit for a minute or two until it gets kind of dry to the touch. You stick them together. Once you stick them together, they're very difficult to get apart. So that's what we're gonna do. What I like to do is get the basic length of what I want. So you're gonna go ahead and I kind of start down on this slope. So you don't want to start like here because it's going to leave a funky hump. So if you leave it down a little bit and just kind of move it around, and you want to basically go back to this, where this little ledge is about where I stop. So right about there. So go ahead and snip it. Now you've got a more reasonable piece to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a test spray. This stuff can get unruly. The tip gets clogged up and it'll go, psst, it'll spray all over everything. But if the tip's working properly, you can really control it. Again, you don't have to go crazy. You're not holding up a headliner here. And just need to spray what you got. So this is set up for a minute. I'm going to start laying it in there. What I'm doing is I'm keeping it flush with this outside edge, because 2 inches is a little bit thicker than we need, but we're going to trim it flush. So just press it in, keep it tight around the corner. Now that's good. That's not going anywhere. Flip it over. Oops. Flip it over. Spray some glue on this side. Try not to spray it everywhere all over your bench. It's really controllable stuff if you have one with a good spray tip. Now we're going to let that sit for a minute. Okay, now that that's set up, you're just going to go ahead and work it over. Try to get it down into that little divots just so it's nice to keep that shape. Again, hug this back rail and smooth it out. There's your first layer done. Even this feels better than what was on there before. So at this point, you're in pretty good shape. What I like to do then is basically trim, go through like this. This is where these good scissors come in because you can really just kind of snip your way along if you have to. Sometimes this recycled felt gets some fibers in it that are kind of hard to get through, and again, that's where the little snip, you can get a good snip in there and clean it up. Of course, having spray glue on there doesn't make it cut any nicer, that's for sure, but you can get it done. Come up here for the last couple snips, make it easier. All right, there's your first layer. So what I like to do then is put another layer. Oh, one last thing. Anywhere there's an edge like that, you got to get the build up down, and again, that's where the good scissors come in. You can actually come in and give it a little taper just to clean it up. Now you have no transition there. I do the same thing back here. I just come in and give it a couple snips, kind of like you're giving a haircut and you're blending, like, I don't know, blending sideburns or something. Just want to snip it like that a couple times, nice and smooth. That'll just make it better when you're finishing up. If you could even see, I think I was out of frame. So this layer here is strictly just a extra cushion. I like to start it just above this one so that it's just coming up proud a little bit. Again, we're going to snip it just like we did Snip It Smooth. And I only bring this one to that little hump right there. And I do that because if you put too much down around the front, you won't be able to pull the cover back enough to go over the lip. It's already pretty tight like it is. So this just makes that a little bit easier to do. Once you have that in place, go ahead and trim it again, just like you did last time. And keep in mind that this is, I'm by no means an upholstery expert. So there's definitely other ways to do this. And some of which are most likely better than what I'm showing you. However, I'm pretty happy with these results, honestly. If I had taken this somewhere to an upholstery shop and they told me that instead of foam, they used jute padding, I would have been like, okay, how's it feel? And I'd try to test it out and I'd be happy. So just giving another option here. So that's not how I really like that to come out, but it's going to work out fine once I glue the last piece on. Okay. Now, the last piece you can do a couple ways. You can do one more strip that starts here, goes all the way around back under here. Then you could cut out a piece that fits in here, and you cut a piece that fits in there, glue it on, and you'd be fine. What I like is I like the nice curved top. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a bigger piece. This stuff comes in a roll. I bought it was like 50 feet of it, and I bought it on Facebook Marketplace, and there was most of it left, so you can get big chunks. So what I want to do is I want to actually start the foam right before the tip of this, so right around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lay it like that, kind of where I want it, and I just want to get an idea where I'm going to spray glue, because I don't want to spray glue everywhere and then have to cut it. It just makes a mess. So I'm just going to basically very loosely trace out what I want here. Now you're going to notice that I don't have enough to wrap all the way around. That's okay. What I think I'm going to do is go as far as I can and then just put a little filler piece in. The reason I'm doing that is I want to verify that that's going to fit on there even with this extra, because I've been usually just curving it to here and then stopping it. I want to make sure it's going to work out before I glue a whole strip on. So that's how I'm going to do it, but you could use a longer piece and wrap it around. There's really no rhyme or reason. So what I'm going to do is just kind of curve that like that. Just put an end line. So that's where I know my glue's got to go. And then also what I can do to, again, help is I could take my scissors and I can just cut this excess off that I know I'm not going to use. There, I can use that as a strip for later if I need to. And I'm going to go ahead and spray this spray glue on. And I'm going to spray some on here, keeping pretty close to the lines so I don't have a whole bunch of excess sticky. Alright, so for doing this one, I'm just going to take this and kind of line it up, press it down to get it started, and once it's started you can kind of lift it up and use your hand to make sure you're getting the contours that you need. Go ahead and curve it around, and once you do that, basically now you're stuck on there. You need to make some relief cuts so you can start folding over. I just come straight down here. Just come straight down to about where the bend is. Once you do that, you'll notice now you can fold it up. So on this side, I start on this side. This side, you basically just need to follow this contour on this side and follow that and trim it to the bottom. So I just flip it over, kind of keeping it pulled tight, flip it down, get your Sharpie, and just for now, I'm going to just trace basically the outline of this thing. And then when you get to the end, just go off the edge. It doesn't really matter because you're not going to be using that material. Get your scissors, just loosely follow that line. Now you can see that's what you're going to wind up with, would be around there. It doesn't matter which end you start with. Here, I'll start at this end. So basically, I just want to cover right in here. So I'm just going to kind of put my finger there, put my finger there, just get an idea of how it's supposed to look. Use your scissors, watch your fingers, and give it a snip. You can see already that you're going to wind up with something pretty close. Down at this end, you know you're going to cut this off, so I go in and I trace. You want to cut this notch out too, that way you can get to your adjustment screw. So you're definitely going to cut this off there, and then from there you're going to start this. So what you can do is flip it back over, push it down, use your finger and just kind of follow your finger as you trace till you get to there. Now if you take your scissors and you follow this line, follow that line to there, and you flip it over, you can take your scissors and cut straight across to here, and when you're done, that piece will come off. Come in here, snip out your little window for the screw, and you'll notice that at no point have I made a template or a pattern, and honestly, the most time-consuming part of this is waiting for the glue to set up enough to push the pieces down. Otherwise, this happens really quickly. So that side's done. Now we're on to this side. Same situation. I want it to come down here. On this one, though, I want to be careful that I'm bringing the material to here, but I'm only gluing to here. You got to leave this flap open. So same thing. I come here. I put a little dot right where this corner is. I put a little dot right there. So we're going to cut that first. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to run a straight line from here to there. and cut that whole section out. So it really doesn't matter what you do here. Come straight in. And then up here, you're going to just snip away. So now you've got that part. Now, all you really have to do is come trace this out. Trace that out. And then here, just put like a little crosshair, because you know you're going to have to cut right here. You're going to have to cut that out in order to get into that crevice. So let's go ahead and cut. Again, follow the line. You don't have to be super precise with it, but you don't want to go way out of whack because there is a weird contour to it. Snip that out and then lay it over and see what you got. Perfect. I cut the corner off because you don't want a corner, and we're also going to deal with this here in a minute. Actually, for this, since I didn't get enough glue on there, I'm just going to basically cut it at an angle like that. I'm also going to get rid of this and trim this up a little bit more because it's going to get in our way. Get rid of that. See how I have a little bit proud there? I'm going to come in and snip that, shave it down a little bit. All right. Now we can glue these panels on. Piece of cake. This side, we'll start with this side. So we're going to come in with our glue. This, you want to glue the whole thing. Get your little pieces out of there. And then in here, just spray it with glue. You know, obviously you're not going to stick it on the inside, but trust me, that this glue is so sticky that as long as you get it remotely close, it's going to stick. So we'll let that set up for a second, press that in, and then I'll show you how to deal with this over here. We're going to do a test fit on that real quick on the cover, and then I might glue another strip on the bottom of this one. We'll see, just to fill it in a little bit. This stuff is thinner than the foam. Like I said, the finished armrests are still going to be a tiny bit baggy, but it's going to be a controlled, this is going to be a stupid word, but a controlled bagginess. Whereas before, it kind of just looked empty. I mean, you could see, even after I took that off, I mean, just that looks better. I mean, it's amazing, and once you release it from that foam, how much these kind of regain their shape. But instead of just being super saggy and baggy, it's just gonna look like a relaxed pair of sweatpants versus, you know, wearing something that's 10 times too big. So this stuff does not take long to set up. When you're pressing this in, go ahead and follow this plastic line tight, and then the rest of it, lay it in there, press it down, give it some pressure. You don't need to don't use your fingers and poke it down in there, just let it be nice and smooth. Okay, we'll get to this side. Remember we said we cannot put glue there, so all I do is take a piece of material. Now I do want a little bit of glue there, but it doesn't really matter. We're not gonna put glue there. Just put a piece of material there and go ahead and spray. Then you don't have to worry about it. All right, that should be good. So you want to fold this over nice and even, making sure to meet up with your bottom line there. Push it down. So that's basically what you wind up with. Now you've lost a little bit of shape, but that's okay. What I usually do again is I come in here and I just kind of soften some of the edges with the scissors. And you can do that very easily. Just give it a couple snips. This whole line, I just go down and take the edge off, give it a fillet. Same with this one. Okay, that's it. Now you can see, I mean, you can barely see those seams. It's looking good. Maybe give this one a little snip too. This one doesn't matter. So one thing you have to do is, like I said, leave access for that. So The easiest thing to do is come in here and cut maybe, I don't know, yeah, maybe 2 inches in, leave yourself a flap. This can be glued down, but it doesn't really matter, just as long as you can get to that screw hole. Now we have the armrest ready to stick back in the cover. So we're gonna give it a shot and see how it looks. I have a feeling I'm gonna be putting more material on this one. So you just have to be careful you don't start rolling it, rolling it under, because you'll have a hard time getting it out. So you want to kind of unroll this first before you start yanking on it. So you just kind of put it against your stomach and give it a pull, kind of push it around. No, that's not too bad. So you can see you still have a little bit of bag. And I think I can probably get away with putting one more piece in there, but I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference. Yeah, I'm going to call that good, honestly. I could put more in there, but like I said, as soon as you start putting your elbows on it and stretching it out again, it's gonna stretch a little bit anyway. The important thing is that you're able to get this cover back on, and it's got to be able to come up and flip over this edge. And the first one I did, I didn't leave enough. I put too much around the end, and I wasn't able to get this back into position, and it didn't look right. I had to take it back off. So this one's looking pretty good, just like it sits. There you go. Okay, so when you go to stick these back on, like I just showed you, you have to kind of roll this back, being very careful right here because it will rip. Just roll it back enough so that you can access your bolt hole. This goes on just like this, screw facing up. You're going to stick it on there first. Go ahead and get your 19mm socket and get your bolt ready. One thing to be cautious of, well, besides this thing falling off constantly, is to make sure when you put your bolt through, that's where your little flap comes in handy, make sure it's going through this metal bracket. This little metal bracket can move, so you can inadvertently have this bracket can be up here and you can miss it. So go ahead and push it through until it's pretty much all the way through. Put your bracket back on or your stopper back on. Make sure your armrest is in the up position, not down like this when you put this through, or else it's not going to go together properly. Put it in the up position, and you got to watch because that little bracket will fall off of there until you get this bolt starting to tighten up. So once you get it close, go ahead and give the bolt a couple turns, see if you can get it started. Okay, I got it started. Watch your ears here. I'm going to go ahead and crank it down. Okay, now, remember what I said earlier about your checking out your tension. Now this is way too tight. Take your wrench or your socket, back it off a little bit. Try it. Back it off a little more. Okay, that feels really good. So that's what we're going to do. Now it is going to get a little tighter after you pull this stuff in there, but that's a really good starting point. Not even a starting point. It'll be good enough. So to get this back into shape, you've got to roll it over. Now you originally had to put it like this to get it on. You're also going to have to do, I'm sorry, to get it off. You're also going to have to do that to get it on. You're going to go ahead and wrap it around. Try not to get in the way here. You're going to go ahead and wrap it around. Pull it like that. Now this part here is going to be tough. You got to actually put the arm all the way up, because if you don't, you're going to be fighting that metal bracket that's right there. So you put it all the way up, and again, you keep sliding down on this. Give yourself as much material as you have to work with, because you're going to have to pull it around, and just start using your fingers to shove it around the corner. Now, the other thing you want to try to use here is that little plastic tool. You got to be careful with these because they do have sharp edges sometimes. This one I kind of dulled down a little bit, but you basically want to take it and start pressing the material back in there. It'll sort of, once you get the seam to the very back, it will kind of go around and you'll kind of feel it slip in. Do it on the bottom, flip it up, move around to this side, do a little bit more down here, try not to rip anything or cut anything. And then once you think you got it, move your arm up and down a couple times. As long as it doesn't pop back over, you're good. So, let's move some stuff here. And let's take a look at the final product. So we have let's recap here. I've cleaned all the surfaces with Windex. I've cleaned the top of this seat with the carpet cleaner. It came out okay. I treated a couple spots up here, just spot treated it. It's nice, the back is nice. The armrests both operate nice and firm. You can totally see some wrinkles here, but that's just because from somebody leaning on it, it's stretched the vinyl. You could fill this thing up with foam, but you're gonna start to get weird shape. And these are supposed to be squared off. So I'm gonna just keep an eye on them and see if they'll shrink back up. I'm eventually gonna get covers for these things, new covers anyway, so we'll see how that goes. But they're very comfortable. I probably still have a little bit of cleanup to do on this one, but you can rest your arm on that no matter where you put it. And because we curved the material around the top, there's just no hard edges anywhere, and it feels really supportive. So give that a try if you want to get this stuff for covering your car. Like I said, it comes in a big roll. I was able to get it 72 inches wide, but they sell it on Amazon for 36 inches wide, which would be plenty for doing this project. So that's it. And I also I painted the front brackets, which you're gonna have a hard time seeing without light, which I don't have. Here. So I like the flat black because it basically just looks like new metal when you're done. So that'll about do it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm probably still going to use some of that leather stuff and just kind of rub everything down. But these seats are in pretty good shape. The Suburban has pretty low miles, so it was just, I think somebody might have been using it for work for a little bit, just for the amount of dust and dirt that was in it. But for the most part, it cleaned up nice, and it's going to the seats are totally fine for what I'm going to be using it for. So again, that's the passenger. Driver's already done. Driver's seat's super nice, mostly because I think it was in the passenger side, which is weird, but did the same thing to the armrests. They're nice and tight, good to go. And the next step is to pop them in the car. Like I said, if you have any questions about anything I did or any of the processes or any comments, I'm always open to comments. Telling me, better ways to do things or new ways to do things, or just letting me know that the video helped. I appreciate the comments. So, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.